Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. I'm reading from the book called Kabbalah and Exodus, and I'm going to be reading the particular chapter, what is called chapter 36 in the book, but actually from the Bible, the Exodus chapter 31, which simply is called Day of Recreation. Day of Recreation, Exodus 31. In the last phase of Moses' instructions on the mountain, the Lord speaks of the Sabbath. The day is to symbolize the original Sabbath when God rested from the work of work of bringing the world of creation into being. It, however, contained much else. The scripture says, quote, above all, you shall observe my Sabbaths, for the Sabbath is a sign between me and you and every generation, that you may know that I am the Lord who hallows you. End quote. This statement not only commands a recognition of the cycle of creation, but makes it a weekly memorial wherein the Israelites acknowledging their creator. The significance of this commandment was to be born, or I should say bored out in later days when the temple was destroyed and there was no longer any physical tabernacle. The Sabbath was still celebrated even in the most difficult times all over the world. If anything kept the people of Israel in touch with their destiny, it was the observation of this commandment. The Sabbath is a day of rest. It comes at the end of a cycle related to the four phases of the moon. Thus, there is embodied in this rhythm an acknowledgement of the interaction of heaven and earth. The plant and animal kingdoms live within this daily and monthly rhythm as they progress through the solar year. Mankind, which contains a vegetable and animal level within its being, also has to submit to these cycles. The Sabbath at this level provides rest, recreation, and a pause in the working cycle for time to reflect upon the greater worlds and their creator, as well as a stop to look inwardly at the interior universe of the spirit. It is often only during such periods of regulated quiet that we perceive things outside our own little realm of ego and it immediately circle. Work was forbidden on the day because, quote, it is holy to you, end quote. It's interesting. It's not holy to God, it is holy to you. So it's what God is saying simply, what this is saying, he is trying to explain, it's important for you. That is, it's set aside for the purpose of seeing the, quote, whole, W-H-O-L-E, which has which has the same old English root meaning as holy. Totality is quite a different scale from anything else. That is why the scripture goes on to say that those profaning it shall surely be put to death, end quote. In a biblical translation meaning, quote, if you break cosmic law, it can kill you, end quote. The word is not, quote, must, end quote, or will, but surely, which changes it into a spectacle proposition, because as the text continues, quote, for everyone that works on it, the Sabbath, that soul shall be cut off from the midst of his people, end quote. This means that the connection between the body, soul, and spirit will be lost, and the unity of the being and his development impaired, if not damaged permanently. Anyone who has worked excessively hours known the self a strange state where the body and mind, let alone the soul and spirit, are disoriented. The warning of being cut off is not a threat, but profound observation about those who disregard the cycle of creation and lose themselves in overwork and reflectionless. That is reflectionlessness activity. It should be remembered at this point that on the day prior to the Sabbath, a double portion of manna always fell, half the manna keeping until the seventh day. And this symbol is the law that providence takes care of anyone observing it. Indeed, this is true for anybody who turns his attention to higher things and seeks the kingdom of heaven. That is, in Kabbalah, the spiritual level of the self. And so that's always an internal thing to also. Then, as a later great Jewish mystic said, quote, all else will be added unto you, end quote. On the social level, the Sabbath was when the family were together, wearing their clean and fairest or finest clothing. They would celebrate the wedding of the Sabbath, which was seen as a bride in the union of heaven and earth. Interesting, yeah. That is something that's true. So there's a feminine perspective here. And the masculine would be the heaven. This marriage was symbolized by the weekly conjugate act between a man and his wife on the eve of the Sabbath. Kabbalah saw such a union as an aid in the unification of the upper and lower worlds. Correct. Because in Judaism traditions, esoteric work was not designed to escape the mundane, but to bring the soul and spirit into contact with the body so as to enhance the earth with the upper worlds. The upper worlds, again, is up here, you see. But it's also heaven. Thus, the Sabbath union of Adam and Eve brought right and left pillars, correct? Correct. And above and below, together as face gazed upon face in the microcosm of a human relationship. This is why sexual symbolism is used in Kabbalistic literature. According to the rabbis, those who observe the Sabbath acquire an extra soul. By this is meant that to the body, psyche, and spirit is added a fourth level called Hayah, Hayyah, that is, divine consciousness. This state is said to last throughout the Sabbath and give to the person an experience of grace. At the end of the day, Hayah is withdrawn and the person reverts to his normal state. With the individual who is working on his inner development, the Sabbath is clearly an extra special day that with Hayah, aid his body, psyche, and spirit can be more easily receptive to the divinity within. By nightfall, if only for a few hours longer, he may be able to retain contact with Hayah. Let me see something really quick here. I'm curious at this word. I don't know if it's in here, so I'm just speculating here again. I've never seen that. I think that's just a Jewish word. I don't think it's in the Bible. Let's see. No, it's not. Okay, that's what I was wondering about. Okay. Let's see where's that at here. Okay, aid his body, psyche. Let's see what. Okay, at the end of the day, the Hayah is withdrawn, and the person reverts to his normal state. For the individual who is working on his inner development, that is his spirit, the Sabbath is clearly an extra special day in that with the Hayah, aid his body, psyche, and spirit can be more easily receptive to the divinity within. By nightfall, if only for a few hours longer, he may be able to retain contact with Hayah. Traditionally, the Sabbath is devoted to worship and study. Generally, a portion of the Torah is read in the synagogue and a sermon is given. This keeps the teaching before the people with the sermon relating to current problems that confront the community and individual. According to custom, the afternoon is spent studying the commentary of the sages on the week's scriptural passages. The degree of comprehension depends on the stage of development of both the teacher and instructed. Thus, while one school might be preoccupied with a fine legal print, another group might well be concerned with the esoteric meaning of that same text. This way of spending the Sabbath has been observed from generation to generation over many centuries. While the outer or esoteric rules, practices, and customs were refined into a code regarding the Sabbath, esoteric work brought a rich mystery into the day of rest. For example, the Sabbath was seen as the Maku, or kingdom of the week, containing all the days that had gone before. The Sabbath was also perceived as the turning point back towards the crown of the new moon as it waxed and waned. Through the 4 weeks or worlds of the month, the Sabbath was considered to be in many ways as important as, if not more important than the holy, what we call the high holy days, such it had been commanded on Mount Sinai. When God had finished instructing Moses upon the Sabbath, he was given the 2 stone tablets of testimony and sent down into the lower worlds. Remember, he's still at the mountains here, so to speak. He's on the top. He said, in some ways, Phil would share this, would say, on a mountaintop, if you're on a mountain, you're simply, what we call in a rare space, but also in heaven. And he was the only one who was allowed to do that, which meant in reality, he was the only one that actually ascended. I don't know if Aaron was allowed to go up, just if I remember back in my mind here. I don't think he was allowed to go up, as far as I know so far in this, what we read in this particular book. Let's see where I go at here. He was given the 2 stone tablets of testimony and went down into the lower worlds. So this is not a physical aspect, but it means it going higher in a spiritual context. Having been upon the mountain for 40 days and nights, during this time, much had also happened among what we call the Israelites as they waited with increasing impatience, flagging will and fading discipline for his return. It is as such critical moments at the high point of initiation that the individual is tested, not in his strongest area, but where the demons of chaos can gain the easiest access. So that's the end of chapter 36 today. Recreation, I think it's entitled. We're able to get a show on today. I've had some issues with my internet just about all day today, in fact. And I've been able finally to get on here, wanting to do this reading. So this is from Kabbalah and Exodus, Day of Recreation. This is from the book Exodus, chapter 31, but it's also the chapter 36 in the book that this particular author had written. And so we'll stop here at this point, and we'll try to see if we can do another broadcast. So it'll be a few moments, and I'll go ahead and broadcast another chapter. Okay, thank you.